The moon was full but marked by high drifting clouds. On the distant hill behind the churchyard, an owl called, its screech echoing and re-echoing across the dark slopes of the valley, fading mistily in the distance, but lending an eerie elemental sharpness to the midnight cold. There were other predators on the hill, rustlings in the undergrowth, nocturnal movements in the long grass of the hillside. But in the churchyard itself, everything seemed frozen to stillness, as though the darkness was expectant, waiting for something to happen. In the lee of the hill on the edge of the village, which had finally died some 15 years earlier from the neglect of a century, the ruins of the old church seemed black in the moonlight. The faint glow of the embers, remains of the small fire that had been lit where the sacristy had once stood, were a reddish stain in the darkness. The lights from the shaded lanterns cast grotesque shadows against the old stone walls of the churchyard, patterns of dim movement, the rustling of dark cloaks shivering a backcloth of menace to the barely distinguishable forms that crouched against the ancient stones. As the clouds moved from the moon, the pale light sharpened, cast into black relief the tight circle in which the worshippers stood. The moonlight touched them, silvering the stones behind them, and at the touch they rose from their crouching positions to stand upright, heads still lowered, but eyes behind the hoods flickering sideways to their master. The chanting began. It was an old language, a cold language, words hauled out of a past dark with terror and viciousness, blood, sensuality, and death. To the group the words were meaningless, and yet full of meaning. They could not know what the chant signified, but they were aware of its strength and its evil, and its purpose. It was a thin noise, a controlled sound touched by an undercurrent of fear, but wary of the world beyond the gates of the church. It was a sound that faded among the tall Gothic tombstones the early Victorian mourners had erected to commemorate their dead 150 years ago. But it was a sound that had existed for longer than those stones, a chant that had been heard for more than 300 years.